So your first question on the quiz, find the slope, or write the equation or the line and slope in their form, which means fill in the blanks. You got to figure out two pieces of information. You got to fill in, we have y equals, you got to figure out what the slope is and fill it in right there. And then you're going to have n times x and a plus, and then you got to figure out the y-intercept. You got to figure out what b is. You got to figure out these two things and write the final answer. That's it. Step one, always step one, find the slope. On your quiz question, it's going to be given as two ordered pairs. So you're going to have to use the slope formula. Now remember, it's open notes. You can use what we're doing right now. You can use the other quiz preps that you have. It'll be just like this question. So what I'm about to show you as your first step is exactly the same first step that you take when you do the quiz. So later this late morning for brunch. The slope is y sub 2 minus y sub 1. Subtract the y's over x sub 2 minus x sub 1. So you just have to choose which y you want to start the numerator with, the 4 or the -6. Which one? The -6. So we're going to start the numerator with this -6. So this -6 minus that 4. Okay. And then if we start from this ordered pair with that -6, we have to start the denominator from the same plate, the same ordered pair. So from this x, 7, minus that x, which is 12. Now, it doesn't matter. We could have done, just for comparison, starting from this y4, but remember, it's always subtraction, minus the other y, which is -6. So if we have, like, let's say both y's were negative, just in case. This one minus that one, you're going to have to subtract the negative no matter what. If I have to subtract the negative, use parentheses. This y4 minus, because it's always subtraction, that y, which is -6, so you have parentheses, and you have this x, 12, minus that x, which is 7. We'll get the same answer. Up here, if I continue, -6 minus 4 is -10. 7 minus 12 is -5. Always simplify. A negative over a negative is a positive, and 5 goes into 10 2 times. The slope is 2. Over here, we get this, these two negatives become a positive. This becomes 4 plus 6. When you subtract the negative, it becomes 4 plus 6. And this is 12 minus 7, that's positive 5. 4 plus 6 is 10 over 5. 10 divided by 5, that's positive 2. So it doesn't matter which y you start with. Okay, you'll get the same slope provided you don't cross. Has anybody ever seen Ghostbusters, or even is anybody here that hasn't heard of Ghostbusters? I mean, they've made a billion of them now. You don't cross the streams. Well, then at the end of the movie, of course, they cross the stream. Nobody ever explained that. You don't cross the x's and y's. You can't go this y minus that y, and then go this x minus the other x. You can't start from this y and then the denominator starts from this x. You have to start from the same place. If I start from this y, I have to start from the denominator from that x. And it's the y over the x's, the rise over the run. The rise is the y's, the run is across, across is the x's. So step one, we find the slope. Slope is 2. Okay. We'll save a little bit of room. Get rid of that. We have a slope that's equal to 2. So now we have, right, it's not a special case. So we're gonna just write out y equals mx plus b. Anytime I'm gonna use the formula, I'll just write the formula. And it's in the question. So I get to memorize it for here. Plug the formula in, or plug the slope in, plug in the slope. So now I have y equals, I got a 2x. But I still have to figure out what b is. I'm using purple. I got 2x, but I still have to figure out what b is. Don't know the b yet. So there's 3 things here, y, x, and b, 3 letters. If I have 3 letters and I'm trying to figure out one of them, I need something to plug in for the other 2. If I want to figure out y, then I need to know something about x and b. If I want to figure out x, I need to know something about y and b. If I want to figure out b, I need to know something about x and y. Well, I want to know what b is. So that means I need to plug something in for the x and the y. The x and the y are the ordered pairs that are on the line. So you got to find an ordered pair, an x and the y that's on the line. You're given 2. This is on the line and that is on the line. So pick one of those and plug it in for the x and y. It doesn't matter which one you pick because they're both on the line. You get the same answer. So pick one of these 2. Which one? 12, 4. So if I'm going to use the 12 and the 4, I just always write over here on the side. That means I'm going to let the x equal 12 and the y to 4. Don't get them mixed up. So y is now going to be replaced with a 4. And that equals 2 times the x is a 12. So 2 times the 12. And I'm solving for b. So 4 is equal to 2 times 12 is 24 plus b. We subtract 24. 4 minus 24 is negative 20. Equal b. So the y-intercept that we were trying to figure out is negative 20. So we're going to replace it with a negative 20, and you write the final answer. Y equals 2x minus 20. I'm going to get some people going, all right, can I put y equals 2x plus negative 20? You can, by all means, write that, but it's not simplified. It's not finished. What is plus a negative? Well, when you add a negative, that's just subtraction. The directions are always going to say simplify. Because if that was the case, then I can keep on going. I can say y is equal to 2x plus minus, and then a plus, and then a minus, and then a plus, and then a minus, and then a minus 20. As long as I have an odd number of negatives, it's going to be a minus. I had a student when I was teaching high school, and he would do crap like that. If I wasn't specific about the directions, you would find a way to come up with an answer that was ridiculously the same as what the actual answer was. But now I have to go and figure out, is his answer the same as what that answer is? Maybe just in one of only 2 students I ever asked him, would you please transfer out of my class? It was the 3rd year that I had him, and 2 years was enough. I mean, he's a real good guy. He actually went into the Navy, became a nuclear engineer, nuclear technician. Which scares the hell. But he needed that discipline. Because he was always derailing the train. Smart as a whip, and just Justin. We got to get everybody else to this destination. You keep trying to take us over the edge. You can't fly. Don't get on my plane. Okay. Any questions? Same process that was happening. All right. The next three, are they parallel or are they perpendicular? And the only way to figure it out is compare the slopes. So you have one of those three. So maybe yours is going to be parallel. Maybe yours is going to be perpendicular. I doubt you're going to get neither, because I'm probably not going to waste it neither when I want to know if you understand the concept of parallel or perpendicular. But if you don't get equal, if you don't get opposite and reciprocal, then the answer will be neither. I'm going to rewrite C over here. That way it's not stacked on top of each other. C is line 5, 28.41, 5x. Say. Compare the slopes. So we need the slope. And the way you get the slope is solve for y. Because when you put it in slope intercept form, the slope is the coefficient of the x coordinate. The slope is that number right in front of the x, the coefficient of x. That's how you find slope when you don't have 2 points. So we just have to isolate y. What is y equal? So if we're going to undo what's being done to this y, the first thing you do is simplify both sides. Well, this side is simplified. I can't combine these together because they're not like terms. That's just a 12. That's simple. The next step, get all the variables that you're looking for, get all the y's on one side, get your other terms on the other side. So I have to undo this x and take it to the right side. Since that's a positive 4x, I would subtract 4x from both sides. You have to fight this next, compulsion. We like y equals mx and then plus b. Order is going to matter. Order will matter. The x term and then the constant. When you write a polynomial, your variables should go from biggest power to smallest power. X to the first, this doesn't have an x. That's x to the 0. So your x term should always go before the constant. So when I have this left side, and by the way, on the left-hand side, don't forget it's a negative 3y. Don't forget to bring down the negative. Equals, on the left-hand side, let's see what we have. We have a negative 4x. And then we have, that's a positive 12. It's like making a list of who's left over on the left side. What do we got on it? Let's put it in the right order. Let's arrange it correctly. So we take a little bit of inventory. And I want to encroach upon the green space over there. On the left side, I have a negative 3y. And on the right side, okay, what x's do we have? We have a negative 4x. What constants do we have? We have a positive 12. I know you're gonna have that compulsion to just write 12 minus 4x because you look from top to bottom, 12 and then minus 4x. That is not wrong. It's just not in the right order because you're gonna be looking for the slope. And trust me, I've seen people get it wrong because they don't put it in this form, in this order. Just an advice. So now to solve for y is being multiplied by -3, so we divide by -3 because that's multiplication. Instead of dividing the whole side by -3, just divide each one by -3. Because you want the individual terms, x and the constant. You want to know the individual terms so you can figure out the slope. So there's positive y equals a negative over a negative, that's a positive. And what you need to see is that this 4 times x over 3 is 4/3 x. That's 4/3 times x. Four x over 3 is exactly the same as 4/3 times x over 1. I can separate the 4 times x into 2 separate fractions. When you multiply fractions, you go straight across. So this is 4 times x in the numerator. The denominator over here would be 3 times 1. So x over 1 is just x. So 4/3 times an x to the first, or x over 1. So we see that coefficient in front of our x. And then over here, the y-intercept. Positive 12 over -3. So positive over negative is going to be a negative. And 12 divided by 3 is 4. We want the slope. So the slope of line 1, m sub 1. That way I know the slope is the slope of the first line. M sub 1 is what? 4/3. That's all you do on the slope. Now, here's where you have to start thinking. I mean, you got to think a little bit before you start. You got to find the slope. But here's what you got to start anticipating. I'm trying to figure out whether this is. Let me back up. You figure out the slope and then you forget what you're supposed to do with it. It's like, man, I found the slope. Okay, can I get some ice cream? Squirrel. It happens. There's still another equation of life. The days of one-step questions are long gone. You're supposed to compare the slopes so you can actually answer the question. So now we got to find the slope of the other one. So anticipate. If they're parallel, what would the slope of the second line be? 4/3. They'd be equal. So if we're going to get parallel, well, that's what you kind of in your head start going, or maybe on the side you're right. All right, if they're going to be parallel, the second slope would be equal to that slope. If they're going to be perpendicular, what would the second slope be?
3/4.
Fail, sorry?
3/4.
Nope. Negative. 3/4. Opposite and reciprocal. So the sign has to be different. One's positive, one negative. Has to be opposite side. And then you flip it. So you know exactly what you're looking for. If it was just 3/4, it's not perpendicular. The answer would be neither. That's not good enough. If it was -4/3, they're not equal, but it's not reciprocal. So that would be a neither. So you got to be careful of those. If they're perpendicular, it would have to be a -3/4. Okay. So now you know what you're supposed to look for. And if I don't get either one of those, then the answer is neither. Now, like I said, I'm not gonna be trying to test you on neithers. So you hopefully should be getting equal or opposite and reciprocal. And if you're not, maybe you need to come up and ask before you just guess. But you can't just write down parallel and not have the proof that you have equal slopes. You can't write down perpendicular and not have the proof that you have opposite reciprocal slopes. Because part of this thing is you gotta have work that justifies your answer. So, to solve for y, need a little room here. I'm gonna go ahead and keep y on the right side, and then I'll just, switch sides later. So I'm gonna add 40 to both sides. So on the left side, the x should be first. So this is 6x plus 40. On the right side, I have a positive 8y. Is it okay to keep the y on the right? I mean, yes, it is okay, but for you guys, would you rather have me switch sides now or just switch the end? Yeah. So that just means I prefer to just have y to be aesthetic of it for the looks of it. The y term on the right, on the left, and I'll put these two guys in order, x first, and then the plus 40. It's like when you tell, when you're in elementary school and you're lining up to go inside. I don't know if they do this now because culture has changed, but did you ever have to line up from smallest to biggest?
Yeah.
Yeah, so when we put polynomials, we kind of go from the biggest power to the smallest power in order. So right here, biggest power x to the constant. And that's just switching it, trading sides. Now to solve for y, divide each one by 8. Everybody gets divided by an 8. So you have y equal, reduce your fraction. Because 6/8 does not look like 4/3. This is common factor is a 2. 2 times 3, and this is 2 times 4. So when we reduce, we get 3/4 times x plus 40 divided by 8 is 5. So what is the slope of the second line? 3/4. Are they equal? No. Are they opposite and reciprocal? No. They're reciprocal, but they're both positive, so they're not perpendicular. So this one first question, part A, is it neither? Then we do line 3, line 4. Let's just say that, hey, you got it, everything's looking good. You know, all you have to do is solve for y, and all you have is 6 times y. The only thing I have to do to solve for y is just divide by 6. So you went ahead and you go ahead and, all right, I'm just gonna divide everybody by 6 right now. And you have this evil question right now. Reduce your fraction. 28 and 6 have a common factor of a 2. This is 2 times a 14, and this is 2 times a 3. So when this reduces, we get 14 over 3. We have plus. Common factor of 27 and 6 is a 3. This is 3 times a 9, and this is 3 times a 2. So when this reduces, this is 9x over 2, and that equals just y. But I also understand that it's kind of hard to read. It's like looking in a mirror. And when you raise your right hand in the mirror, it looks like they're raising their left hand in the mirror. Because they're opposite facing you. So maybe you need to flip it around just to get the bearings. And when you do, it's just put y on this side. And on that side, the x term should go first. It's a positive. The fraction in front is 9 over 2 times x. And then we have a constant of 14 over 3. So what's the slope of the third line? 9 over 2. So if we think ahead, if they're parallel, if they're going to be parallel, then the slope of line 4 would have to be 9 over 2. And if they're perpendicular, the slope of the fourth line would have to be negative 2 over 9. Kind of like solving a puzzle. I want to put the final piece together, and if I'm looking for this final piece, this is what it should look like. This is what I'm looking for. So to solve for y, here's the good news is these last two, y was on the right. So we had to do a little maneuvering and flipping, switching side. Okay, y is here on the left. So we just have to keep it on the left, put everybody else on the right. Subtract 9x from both sides. So there's negative 2y. And it equals, we have a negative 9x and a negative 10. Negative 9x minus 10. Then what do I do next?
Divide by 2. Negative 2.
Divide everybody by a negative 2. Everybody gets divided by a negative 2. So that's positive 1 equals a negative over negative is a positive. So this is positive 9 over 2x. Negative over negative, that's a positive. 10 divided by 2 is 5. And the slope of the fourth line is
9 over 2.
9 over 2. So the slopes, are they equal or opposite reciprocal? Equal. And if the slopes are equal, then line 3 is what to line 4? So you can just write it like this. Line 3 is parallel to line 4. And use that symbol for parallel. Or you can just write the word, they're parallel. Make sure you spell it correctly because it's in the question. It's so difficult to misspell things these days when you have spell check on every device you write. However, I guess when you write, you don't have spell check. You don't piece of paper. A spell check is the equivalent to an English teacher what a calculator was to a math teacher way back when. I'll just let the calculator do it. I'll just let spell check do it. Computers correct grammar, well, AI writes the paper, right? I wrote so many papers on John Lennon and the Beatles. I prefer that AI did it. I think I used the same paper from 8th grade that I did my senior year. They had really good. Solve them for why. subtract 28. I'm left with 8y equals, what do I write first?
5x.
5x and then minus 28. What happens next?
Divide 8 by everyone by 8.
Everybody gets divided by 8. So y is equal to 5 over 8 is the slope, 5 over 8. Now it's x minus simplify. Get used to simplifying. Okay? I'm so sick and tired of taking points off of people that, well, simplify fraction. It just drives me batshit crazy. Is it something that I keep telling everybody you need to do to simplify your fractions, reduce it to lowest term? I don't like taking off points that don't need to be taken off. You got 2 times, well, actually 4. 4 goes into both times. But let's say you don't recognize the 4, you don't see a 4. So if I just go to 2 times 14, 2 times 4, and then I'll see, all right, 14 over 4, I'm done. That's still 2 even numbers. So go again. 2 times 7, 2 times 2. 7 over 2. If you did see the 4, 4 times 7 over 4 times 2. You get there quicker. But you have to simplify your fraction. So what is the slope of line 5? 5 over 8. And if we do any predictions, the slope of line 6 or parallel would have to be 5 over 8. And if it's perpendicular, line 6 would have to have a slope of
Negative 8 over 5.
opposite reciprocal, negative 8 over 5. Gotta get y by itself. Okay, this one, y is on the right side. 5 times y. I'm gonna go ahead and just start from the beginning and switch on both sides. 5y here equals on that side. X should go first. Don't forget, it's a negative. I really made it a point of messing with you here. I made a point of messing with you, making sure that you put the x term first and make sure you put the negative with it. The negative 8x and a positive 85. Now we divide. If you mess up the signs, then you won't see the answer. So we get y equals negative 8 this, x plus 17. What is the slope of line 6?
Negative 8 over 5.
Negative 8 over 5. So positive 5 over 8, that's a negative, so they're opposite. 5/8, 8/5 of a reciprocal. Yes, so we know they're perpendicular. Line 5 is perpendicular to line 6. You can write it like that, or you can just write the word perpendicular. I wouldn't knock off points, but my only concern is if I divide by 5 right here, and you have 17 minus 8/5 x equals y, is making sure, we identify everybody in there. It's not wrong. If A equals B and B equals A, it's not wrong. But what happens is I see the mistake happen, things get confused because they're on the wrong side. It needs to be consistent for a lot of students. But if you can see that the slope is negative, I don't have a problem with it. I just try to be consistent for everybody else. And the way to be consistent is let's get y to the left. When you type in equations on a graphing calculator, On a graphing calculator, when you put in your y equals, you cannot put anything on the left-hand side with the y. You have to get y by itself in order to type in any equation into a graphing calculator so you can solve it. So you would always get y on the left and everybody else on the right. Now, if I did this, then I would just type this in on the other side. As long as I have y by itself. And it wouldn't matter what order you type it in, because the calculator is going to do all the work. But we have to be able to recognize things that we're looking at. So, of course, math is climbing mountains. This is how I felt at UCLA when I was going to, when I was an aerospace engineering major. A plunk, shoot, 40 years ago. This is like, when I was growing up and my aunt told me this was gonna be her 40th high school, reunion year, people going, man, you're old. This is the fourth, this is my 40th high school reunion. Oh my God, I'm ready for that. Can't believe it. But when I was walking around that campus and we just got out of like a calculus class or something like that, well, there can't be anymore. This has got to be the top. What else do you do beyond this? I realized math is like climbing mountains. Once you get to the top of a mountain, it's just hiding a higher mountain behind it. But all you see is that mountain in front of you. You can't see, it's just a hill. It's hiding another one behind it. So you have to climb that one, and it's hiding another one behind it. Okay. So when I started teaching, I started using this. In 2 weeks, you're going to be wishing we were still doing this. Because in 2 weeks, when we're doing something else, this will be fine. Because you've had practice with this. And when we're doing something new for the first time, it's like, I don't want to do this. And then 2 weeks after that, okay, I wish we were still doing that other stuff. But if you don't practice, well. Watching does not equate practice. Speaking of practice. Do this a little quick preview of 1.3. 1.3 is about substitution into functions. Basically plugging in numbers into equations and then simplifying. Substitute, simplify. So if I gave you an equation, y equals parentheses 5 minus x to the second power, and I said find y if x is equal to 3, okay, and then number 2, when x is equal to -7. So substitute, we simplify. So we go here, plug in 3, we get y equals parentheses 5 minus 3, and then we're going to square it. Order of operations, what's 5 minus 3? So we get 2 squared. What's 2 squared? 4. We get 4. So when x is 3, ordered pair, y is a 4. Now, that may or may not be how you write your answer, follow direction. When the directions say ordered pair, do this. Then it just says, what does y equal? We do that. But then there comes a negative number. Just be careful with the negative. So y equals 5 minus is right there, parentheses, 5 minus. And then you're gonna substitute. Here comes -7 for that x, so parentheses -7. And then you square that. You have to do the parentheses first. In the parentheses, what happens when you subtract the negative? So we get 5 plus 7, and then we're gonna square it. 5 plus 7 is 12. 12 squared,
144.
and we get 144. So if we plug in -7, we get 144. Substitute and simplify, but you have to be careful when you substitute certain things. Order of operations are huge. Taking care of negatives, and you will be plugging in fractions. And these are not equations because you're not solving anything, you're just substitute and simplify, combining terms, carrying out the arithmetic. And there might even be some stuff that looks like this. What is let x equal happy face? So y is equal to 5 minus happy face squared. Maybe that's all you can do. But actually, this would be y equals 25 minus 10 happy face plus happy face squared. Of course. So that's what we do in 10. Going back to 10. I learned that at UCLA too, plug it in happy face.